and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Last time I took longer on that video than I had expected to take, so if you stayed through till the end of it, I hope you enjoyed it, but I apologize for the length of it. I try to correct it this time with no guarantee, because I remembered afterwards there was a passage in Junket which I shared with you, and it had to deal with Dougal, Mr. McGonagall, an Irishman, and actually I'm going to have some Irish, one of the books to share with you is from Ireland, and he says, but my dear, how long is a very little while? That depends on what you're doing, Mrs. McGonagall said. If you like what you're doing, several hours may seem just a little while. If you don't, several minutes would be plenty. So I was fascinated what I was finding out about the puffin, and I got carried away. There's some things that I haven't told you as well. More. It stands about 8 inches. Now, so I have a picture of it here. This is the Atlantic puffin, and it actually is much closer to a whole foot in this picture. But it's only the length of my span of my fingers. It only comes up about to right here. So it's much smaller than this. But they had a big page, and it's sometimes you want a bigger picture, so you blow it up, you enlarge it. So that is, I had thought it was maybe this big, and now I have a better reference. It's much smaller, and and that means what it's got in its mouth is probably smaller too. I'm almost positive. I've done some research on it. It's hard for me to tell, but I think these are sand eels. The nice thing about a sand eel is there's no bones. And so when you're feeding it to your new baby chick, you don't regurgitate up food for it. You can give it to them. And now, the male and the female look the same. That had been a question I'd had in my head, is because who I always see them like this, with seemingly with a mouthful of food. And is that the male? I was assuming the male was the more colorful one, because of nesting birds to build nests around here, songbirds. I mean, the male will often be a little more colorful, female wanting to blend in and not be noticed on the nest. But of course, their nest is a burrow, so it's not going to be noticed anyway. And so there they are. They both can be colorful, and I just, the feet as well. Now, they do molt. They lose the beak. The feet turn back to a not so bright color. And when they molt, they can't fly for about a month. But they have about 10 months out in separate places, fishing and living. The weight is about 1 pound. Now, 1 pound would be the same as holding a pound of butter. Of course, the birds don't want to be heavy. with weight so that they can fly. And since they fly, they want to be light enough. Up to 50 miles per hour. I mean, whoa, they must be flapping their wings just at a furious rate to make that happen. Just can you imagine? Now, that probably makes them be less of a target. Of course, when they're coming into land, they have to slow that beat down, and that's when they're most vulnerable to the black-backed seagulls, which are big, vicious bird, predator. Well, they're predators too, but yeah. Anyway, what else? I think I'd said they would return to the island at about 2 years. Well, other sources say they're not really sexually mature until they're about 4 years, maybe even 5. And that's when they come back. So I'll stand corrected on that. They do live for 20 years. So they have a much longer lifetime than some birds, which might only live for 2 years or 3 years. So let's see, what else did I discover? The incubation period, I meant to tell you that. The incubation period is 36 to 44, 45, 38 to 45 days. That could be a month and a week, a month and a half in incubation. Amazing. So I think I had something else I wanted to share. I wanted to introduce the other puffins. That's what I wanted to do. This is the Atlantic puffin. That's what the Atlantic puffin looks like. Now, here on this page is a puffin that lives in the Pacific Ocean, the North Pacific Ocean. They like northern waters because also the fish that they like to eat are inhabit those waters. And this is called the tufted puffin. And the third one, I found a picture here in this book. I'm sorry that I missed it the first time. This is it here. It's a fleshy horn grows above the eye. The face looks different than the puffin, the Atlantic puffin, and the colors on the beak are different, at least the arrangement of the colors. And so this is called the horned puffin. And in the back of the book it also had a picture of the tufted puffin. You can see the size of its bill is humongous. It even seems to sort of curl down there a little bit. Now, this book shows where the puffins can be found, and it's all in the North Atlantic, more or less down to Nova Scotia and up, across to France and up England, Iceland. Probably 50% of the puffins in the world live in around Iceland, and on up, differing numbers of them, up in Norway and up above Russia, way north up there. And here are the two. The tufted is the solid red, and where the stripes are, that's where the horned puffin. So it goes a little further north. Somewhere, from lower California, even across to Japan, they might be found. So they'd be found in Victoria, and because we're on the West Coast. So Robert Bateman, I checked in this book, Natural Worlds, and sure enough, he's out in his canoe a lot, sometimes with a kayak, and there he's captured them singly and on rocks. Now to do that, he has to photograph them and then work from that photograph to make his paintings, because you can't boat moving up and down try to paint anything. So it's quite a handsome bird. Now the four books for the adults. This is Puffins for Adults. 20 Years of Growing is an account of a young man, Irish, here's Ireland, lives right here, most easterly point, a Great Blasket, the Bay of Dingle, here's Dingle. So this part of the Irish Free State, and he tells about his experiences with puffins, the Atlantic puffin, and other things. And I'm going to, at some time, share a little more from that book. This one is Ronald Lockley. It's called The Island, and it's the most southern point, southwest point of Wales. And there's this island, and he's visited the island. It's not an easy island to access. Rough waters through there often, and finding a place where you can land and go up the cliffs. Hardly anything in the way of we would consider a tree. The land was farmed by a farmer who found it had got too much for him, and it's now deserted when upon the scene comes Lockley. And he has always dreamed of living on an island, and he loves birds and natural science. And when he gets there, he finds burrows all over the place. There's the Manx shearwaters, and half of the world's population of them, this is where they have their nursery, their main nursery. And also in burrows are the puffins, the Atlantic puffins. And also in burrows are rabbits. So it's quite a fascinating place. And in this book there's a chapter devoted to the rabbits, and a chapter devoted to the shearwaters, and a chapter to the puffins. And his life, look him up on Wikipedia. Ronald Lockley, Lockley. He ends up in New Zealand, and why he goes to New Zealand is an interesting story. There's lots of stories here. This is a story of a fellow who was born in New Zealand and ends up in Canada, at least for part of his adult life. And he's a naturalist too. His name is Franklin Russell. He wrote The Secret Islands and many other nature books. And he's visiting the islands in, here's the Labrador Current, Labrador, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, Bay of Fundy, New Brunswick, Maine, Grandma Nan Island, Hay Island. He's visiting these secret places where birds nest. Gull Island, Funk Island, and he's a beautiful writer. All three of these are just wonderful writers, in my opinion. And here she is, Rachel Carson, Under the Sea Wind, and she's divided her book into three parts. The first and the third are dealing with sea sand, that's what threw me off. Sand eels. So, thank you for joining me. I tried to hurry a little bit faster. Thanks for staying with me. And until next time, bye for now.